Hey, beautiful people. My name is Kristen. It is that exciting time of the year that we get to do our top favorites of the year. And I always have a really hard time putting my nonfiction, my classics, and my fiction all in the same categories. It's just really difficult in my mind to kind of gauge those together. So this year, when I looked at all of the books that had really impacted me, really were 5-star, really were awesome, I'm just going to do 2 separate lists. So I am doing my nonfiction in this video. I have 6 books I am going to talk about. I read 31 nonfiction books this year. So these are the top contenders, the ones that have really stuck with me, that have really taught to me, spoken into my life, going to share them with you. And I will also link below a couple other standalone videos I did of a couple of them that were 5-star that also I thought were worth mentioning, but just didn't make the top tier cut for this video. So without further ado, I will start with my first one, Sandy Tolant. This is The Lemon Tree. This is the story of talking about the conflict of the Arabs and Muslims and Jews and multiple warring factors over in the Middle East. And I confess some of this was still over my head. I kind of reread a couple of sentences again, and it is very, very layered, very complex, lots of history, lots of time, lots of misunderstandings, and then compounding issues. So there is no easy answers to begin with over in the Middle East. But what is beautiful about this story is that it has a memoir documentary of a couple families who basically are back and forth in the same house that has a lemon tree growing in the backyard. And the way this lemon tree even becomes kind of the symbol of hope, in the sense that they are on opposite sides, yet they listen to one another's stories and they honor one another's humanity. And that to me is the hope or the message for the future. And I even kind of teared up and got very emotional reading this book, and just thought that it was really helpful and well told in the style and the way it did it. So if you have any interest in trying to wrap your brain around what's going on over there or these particular cultures, this would be a good book for you to pick up. My next book that I want to lift up as top of the year is called In the Shadow of Statues. This is by Mitch Landrieu. He was the mayor in New Orleans, and he took on a project to actually take down several, if not most, of the historical statues that were in the city, in hope of stepping towards some healing and reconciliation between cultures and things that were going on in the city of New Orleans. And what is so special about the way he did it was taking the time to really explain his thought process, and really, again, honoring both sides of the argument and kind of explaining why both sides would feel the way they do. And before reading this book, I was strongly in favor of not taking down statues. I wanted to add to statues, if you will, like this statue was put up for this reason, and this is why maybe it's wrong or jaded, and even adding a counter story. Like, I want to know the whole story. That's my personal belief. Having read this and listening to his kind of wrestling through it, I strongly think that he was absolutely right in taking down the monuments. He put up fountains, he put up parks, he put up things that symbolize community. So it was a shift away from that particular history that had been there that was harmful to one community of people, and kind of just meh to the people that technically it was supposed to be the history for, right? And then turning it into a symbol of community. And to me, that is worth even erring on the side of possibly losing some history. So really, really appreciated that book. Along with those, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about 2 books at once. For Black History Month this year, I had read The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, which I had never read this before, as well as The Little Letter from Martin Luther to the Churches, a letter from Birmingham jail. And so this one I think is about 60 pages. This one's maybe 100 pages. They are easy in length to read, but I, again, just learned a lot of other perspective talking about the church. Some of the churches kind of started to do the right thing but didn't go far enough, or, you know, just wrestling with the ramifications and the dealing with that, which I think in some ways we still kind of are. And then here, this is the source, like this is going back to, you know, the back root of the story of why this kind of needed to go on in the first place, if you will. And I just thought that it was very insightful to read these, especially together. And so I would encourage you, if you are thinking about what to read this upcoming year and you have not read these, or even if you've read them in school, maybe look at them again with some fresh eyes, because I just thought that it was just really a great history lesson and just really emotional, and from a humanitarian perspective, to read those books. Then the next book that made my top was actually for November. I always have, in recent years, picked up a presidential book. And so this year I did An American Life by Ronald Reagan. I laughed out loud multiple times. I got very emotional reading some of this, you know, particularly just around some of the wars and the hostage situations and some of the things that, you know, did happen in my lifetime that kind of stirred up those memories for me. And then reading the backstories and the angst is pretty emotional. And then it was just so informative. There was so much that I did not know at all, that I was too young to really be paying attention to the details of history. You know, it gave me even more insight into some of the economics and some of those things, which, you know, we still sometimes deal with that, because contrary to popular belief, economy does not turn on a dime. We have to keep on compounding over the years what's going on and make those decisions the same way as you should do in your households. So anyway, if you are at all interested in Ronald Reagan's life, it also includes his early years growing up in Hollywood, how he got introduced to politics, dealing with the politics in Hollywood, because Hollywood's a little political, y'all. Who knew? Yeah. And it was a fun, informative, good read. It's pretty long. There is an audio of the first 3 chapters with him speaking it himself, so I want to go back and re-listen to it in his words, but the whole book is definitely worth reading. And then my top book for nonfiction is one that I've already pointed out a couple times this year, but that's Beneath the Tamarind Tree, Aisha Sasay. So Aisha is a reporter for CNN who was covering a group of girls who were kidnapped from their school for being girls in school and for their religious beliefs. And they had just a harrowing tale over the months of trying to get back home. And this follows 4 particular, and really the subtitle here, it says a story of courage, family, and the lost schoolgirls of Boko Haram. So just talking about the humanitarian and the worldviews. And then particularly, I think it's important for those of us in more, I don't want to say modern, but, you know, maybe more resourced countries to think about the newsworthiness, right? Because she's a news reporter. So sometimes the events that were so engaging and important, but CNN would be like, we got other stuff that's way more important. We're not even going to deal with that story. So like I love thinking about those kind of philosophical issues of big picture, you know, what stories, what people, what is the value, right? So I really loved that, really enjoyed that. I particularly loved listening to it on audio as I read it, to again hear the author's own voice. That was super, super powerful to hear her own emotion and voice speaking into that story. So those are it. Those were my top nonfiction reads. So I hope that encouraged and inspired you. If there's one that you have already read, leave me a comment below and let me know how you got on with it. Or if there's one that you're thinking about reading now, I would love to know that. And if you want to leave me a comment of your top nonfiction, I would really love that, because here's to nonfiction reading in 2023. I appreciate you stopping by. Y'all have a great day. Happy reading. Happy New Year.